agenda item 7. So invite the Commissioner to present your report outlining the proposed fire precept for 24-25.
Good afternoon. The report in front of you today from a fire point of view is the precept proposal for Northamptonshire Commissioner Fire and Rescue Authority. As in policing, this year's budget has been set in the context of high inflation levels and the autumn 22-23 statement. My budget proposal will ensure the Fire and Rescue Service builds on its success today and makes investments to innovate and improve. Crucially, the Chief and I are determined that the service continues to develop both its performance and its culture. Today's report sets out my precept proposal for the service, together with an overview of the capital budget and the medium-term financial plan and the reserve strategy which have informed my proposal. I will turn to Vaughan for further context later. So on the record of investment, I'm proud to have made massive improvements in the overall financial health of the Fire and Rescue Service since taking on its oversight. We are working hard to reach a financial position, a stable financial position, so that the service is efficient and effective and keeps people safe. Thanks to a great deal of work that has been undertaken, we're now in a position where we can manage within the budget and invest in some improvements. I'm proud to have both been able to increase the number of firefighters and drive a £10 million programme of capital investment that has helped to transform the service. 8 new fire appliances, a 42-metre turntable ladder have joined the fleet, and 4 more will be delivered soon, ensuring that firefighters have the best possible equipment to keep the county safe. This budget provides a sustainable base, maintains an adequate level of reserves and continues to safeguard fire and rescue services in Northamptonshire. But even today's proposed increase, Northamptonshire Fire Rescue remains underfunded and vulnerable to the impact of rising costs. Our Fire and Rescue Service is the 3rd lowest funded in the country, with the 2nd lowest precept levels. As with policing, I will continue to lobby. It's quite an echo here, isn't it? I'm just going to turn. I will continue to lobby central government to address the current funding model. However, with local taxpayers contributing 63% of the service's funding, the Service Council Tax Precept makes an enormous difference to our budget. Our budget survey showed that people were prepared to pay even more than the 2.99% I'm proposing, and I'm very grateful for that support. I've put money aside in the 24-25 budget for innovation and improvement, including making the service more efficient and addressing culture and well-being. As with policing, the budget and the precept for fire recognise the importance of collaborative working. So looking ahead, I've set a clear expectation that both police and fire services will maximise opportunities to work together to deliver more efficient and effective public services. They build on our innovative approach to support services that are led by a joint chief officer. I'm proud of the work our Fire and Rescue Service does, and I will continue to do all I can to ensure they have the tools and the support they need. I'd like to thank everyone who's worked hard to deliver a brighter financial future for the Fire and Rescue Service in Northamptonshire. I'm proud of how far we have travelled, and thanks to a great deal of hard work, you have in front of you a fair and affordable precept that delivers a balanced budget. The proposal to increase the fire precept by £2.19 per annum, or at least 4 pence per week, represents the best value for residents for Northamptonshire and the future of this vital service, and I commend it to the panel.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. On page 85, you talk about a balanced budget, but I see that you've got cost of borrowing of 300k. So why do you need that?
That is to fund the capital programme. So the that sum was put aside to enable us to fund the capital programme based on whatever comes out of the estate's master plan, without adversely affecting the revenue budget.
Where do you borrow it from?
So if we need to borrow, and that's the key point.
That's the if.
Yeah, we borrowing is always our kind of last option for any kind of capital financing at present, particularly due to the high interest rates. So we consistently monitor the cash flow throughout the year, every day. If the capital programme was such that we did need to borrow cash, then that's when we would do it. But what we tend to do is internally borrow using our cash reserves to prevent the need for interest costs unnecessarily.
So all of these additional fire appliances that you've actually built or on order, have you got to borrow for them, or in fact you've actually obviously set money aside over the years?
We've set money aside over the years, we've used reserves and we've used underspends to fund those capital investments. So we've not had to borrow for any of those appliances.
Yeah. On page 19,
Add to that to give you some reassurance. Yeah, we really try and make sure that it's against the life of an asset. So if it's a longer term, particularly estates, we would need to borrow against that. And when we bring the estates for it, there will need to be. But we're trying to do all that we can so that we're not, how can I put it, ransoming the future by hefty borrowing. On one level, not that we're allowed to, I kind of wished we'd borrowed at a lower interest rate a couple of years ago for some of the things we'd like to do. But actually, we'll be looking, bless you, there will be ways that we would do it. So even if we were borrowing, for instance, let's say I'm borrowing money for a new fire station tomorrow, yes? We'd borrow probably in the short term at a short-term variable rate, and then we'd also make sure that we fixed it when they started to come down. So we'll also make sure that we monitor and look in terms of some of the rates and some of the things that we do. But actually, we try not to borrow as well if we can help it.
On page 99, you've got income there of 1,016,000. Where did that come from?
On last year's figures, are you looking at?
Yeah. Even on 24-25, it's still shown as 1,204,000.
I need to go back and look at that. But a lot of the income, any kind of cash recovery on any services performed, we'd use that, and any additional grants that come in that aren't part of the main grant settlement. That's what we'd use there. And as you can see, it's relatively stable across the financial years.
Because it's quite significant, 1.2 million, isn't it? Really?
If you do want any more detail on that, I'm happy to provide that. I'm happy to provide the detail after the meeting if you want.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
I think
Councillor.
it's a slightly different, it is a slightly different number, but it is, we didn't talk about it. One of the things we have done in Northamptonshire, and we probably should provide some more information on it, on our commercial operations. So we set up a number of frameworks to both, if you like, save people money. So even your councils take advantage of it, and we take a 1%. So we've set up frameworks, particularly from a technology point of view, and over the last couple of years they've earned to something like, in conjunction, we used to do it in conjunction with Nottingham. It is ironic, I actually had a better working relationship on that with the Labour PCC than I did the Tory one, because we did it with the Labour one and we stopped doing it with the Tory one, but that contributed something like £2.4 million over a couple of years, and this year will probably generate us something like £500,000. I set them the task. I wanted them to make sure, and admittedly it's an ambition, to generate the income so that the core office, if you like, didn't cost taxpayer any money, and just to know we're halfway there is probably the best way I can put it, but we're not there yet.
Just to add to that, just give you some examples, now if I'm trying to think about it, some of the income amounts that you're talking about in there include things like training courses provided elsewhere, any rental of buildings. So, for example, as you're aware, the ambulance service are currently residing in MLC. That's one example of the income, and there was another one I had thought of that I thought you might find interesting. No, rents and leases is the main thing, and training income. So there's lots of little pots of money that are coming in to make sure we fully recover, and things like Silverstone, any income for fire special operations income.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer.
Thank you. On the income, I wasn't going to say about this, but there used to be quite a lot of training that you used to provide, so I imagine that hopefully will continue. What I was going to ask was on page 119, you got section 106 developer contributions of 0. Now this is something I've been looking into recently because on a particular planning application, your office had requested section 106 for police and fire, and it hadn't gone into the report until I mentioned it, and then it went into the report and was agreed, and then started to look into this a bit more, and apparently in the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, which received Royal Assent on the 26th of October last year, there have been a lot of lobbying by various organisations like the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, National Fire Chiefs Council, National Police Chiefs Council, etc., to make the emergency services can be counted as infrastructure, and I'm really pleased about that. So that's why I'm quite surprised it says 0. But ongoing, hopefully, if monies will come in. Obviously, it takes time because that's just agreed on a planning application, then it has to be built, and then it has to, come into force, etc. So that will take some time, but hopefully, in the fullness of time, you will get some income on that.
I don't think it's a nil contribution. It's about when you spend it.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you for that, and that's a really good point. We only account for the section 106 income when it's drawn down and when we know we're definitely going to get it. And linking back to Councillor Pritchard's comment about capital financing and those contributions to reduce interest expenditure, we, as part of the strategy for reserves, when we bring it in, we assume that we spend it as soon as we can to prevent the need to borrow. So whilst this says nil every year, that's a nil in it because there's an in and there's an out every year. So certainly in fire, you'll see it in the police report, it was slightly different because there were some restrictions, meaning we couldn't spend it straight away. But in the fire strategy, we're assuming that as soon as that section 106 money comes in, we have a lot of projects in the capital programme that we could apply that to. So at the end of the financial year, we will have spent it, and then if we get some the following year, we spend it again. So that's why it looks like it's 0, but there are ins and outs.
It is worth we jointly funded between police and fire a dedicated individual who's doing a really good job of making sure. It would be remiss of me, Councillor Mercer, to thank you for your lobbying, because actually I think we got a nice little bit extra for you making sure that in the was it the Stanton's Barn development?
Stanton Cross.
Stanton Cross. No, okay.
It was in Rushton, a development of 450 houses.
Yes. So I particularly thank you for the every little help. So if I could ask you to take Councillor Mercer's lead, we'd be very much appreciative of that.
Can I have a follow-up question on that? Can I just please ask some questions?
So, Councillor Mercer first, and then
Sorry,
yes, Pauline, of course you can.
You might want to answer Pauline's question first, because if that's related to them. But the other question I was going to ask was about the Youth Engagement Officer, which is on page 85, and if you can explain what that involves.
I think if I just ask one question, because it carries on about the section 106 monies, because there you've got it as nothing, as you say, because money comes in, money goes out. How do we recognise in terms of what comes in and how it's spent?
There are some strict rules about what we spend that money on as part of the drawing down process, and within my office and within the joint finance team, we have some very strict rules about how that's applied. So I wouldn't allow that to be applied to anything that it shouldn't be. Otherwise, we can get into quite a lot of trouble spending money on something we shouldn't do. A lot of it, the majority of it, needs to be spent on capital projects, and it needs to be within the area in which the building is taking place. But every kind of 106 agreement is slightly different, so that's why we employ a specific member of staff to keep us on straight and narrow, that we're adhering to all of the rules and regulations.
Yeah, I hear that, Vaughan, sorry, and I still need to kind of understand, as in, what are those projects? What do they look like? How much is spent on those projects? Because it's here, but it's there as nothing, yet you're saying it's there as nothing because you're unsure of what that's going to be, but when it comes out, when it's pulled out, it's used on certain projects. But why include it there, and it's there as nothing, yet you're telling us, actually, we just put it as nothing because we haven't got a definite figure in terms of what that drawdown might be. But how do we recognise it in terms of panel members in supporting the way that money's spent, if that makes sense? Or understanding even?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And maybe that's something that next year maybe we can delve into a little bit more in one of the workshops that we have. So that you can get a better understanding, because it's probably not something for a formal report to one of these meetings, unless that's the desire. But it might be something we just want to kind of drill down and get a better understanding for all of you on what the plans are and a little bit more detail.
Yeah, because I think that as panel members, if this is being presented to us in support of the work of the Commissioner and being able to properly scrutinise and understand the incomes and the outgoings, we do need to have some kind of discussion around this. I hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Happy.
Could I just suggest that possibly, not necessarily at a formal meeting, but you could just give us a breakdown and show us the sort of some of the figures of that drawdown, so we would have that information in future. Thank you.
I was just going to say yes, I'm happy to, but...
And all I was going to say was just to thank Vaughan for the session that he ran for panel members to really drill into the detail of the financial plans. I think it's I hope it's useful to you. It's an offer that we want to continue to make, but obviously if that's not the best method for you to really get into the weeds of the finances with us, then we need to hear that. Thanks.
I think, yeah, we'd like to get in the weeds. I think it's important. So Councillor Maxwell I've got down to speak, and then Councillor Gonzalez-Savage.
Well, my first question is, this year you actually took on 12 people to become fire people, and but officers, 5 people. Sorry. But you actually sent them away to Oxford to be trained.
Someone's got a mic on. You've been turned back on again. Someone's got a mic on.
I think it looks like Paul, but it might not be. I don't know. No, sorry, just I wasn't saying it was.
Right.
Go on, try.
I think they went to Oxford, I think.
Cotswolds, yes.
Cotswolds, yeah. So that would have cost quite a lot of money, actually, sending 12 people for a week. Was it a week or fortnight?
Several weeks, I think about. I've got 6 or 8 weeks off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
we're just about to send some more.
Are you? Oh, so my next... Well, then now I was then going to ask you, are you sending more to do this training? How many more are you going to send now?
I
don't think you've issued that. Have you issued that press release yet, Deborah? I was going to say, I think I can say. Yes, funny enough, 12 more are going, I think next week or something, I think is it next week. Look, the Practical Fire Training College, we've looked very carefully at our bit. So actually, and I'll get the weeks wrong, but please bear with me on the 10th. Originally, they were kind of there for something like 12 weeks. We've worked out that a more optimum is something like 8. I'll get the exact weeks wrong because more acclimatisation to it here. One of the things, funny enough, we've done this year, we looked at our cover. Given the solid financial situation we find ourselves in, because it's worth reflecting, Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue gets now an additional 8, it had something like 22, 23 million pounds when it came over. It gets best part of 32. It's 8 million pounds a year. That's just under 40% more than it did in that governance change in 4 years. So that's a significant step forward. However, we want to train them the best we can, but we also want to make sure that they're suitable to things. So, if you're interested, and anyone is, there normally is a passing out parade, and they set fire things. And if you're interested, we can. We probably can't get you all in, but some of you might want to go and see it. I do laugh, completely irrelevant to this. There is even a ship there. It is a concrete ship, and such is the data in Her Majesty's government. They even tried to send it to the Falklands when the war. It's actually a concrete ship. But go there. But one of the things we're doing this year, we've also looked in terms of our timing. As some of you know, one of the most challenging time for us each year is particularly during the summer when people go off on holiday. So actually we've recruited them earlier this year so that they're completely up to stream and on stream to enable us to better deal with the challenges that we have in the summer. Because actually maintaining the optimum number of pumps during the summer is challenging. So actually they've gone earlier. So yes, we will continue. We remain committed to making sure we stay above the 254, those 12, and stay baked in. One of the things you'll notice, the £1 million in there for transformation. We're also looking very, very carefully because COVID was good on one level because of course a lot of people weren't at work, so actually our fire cover with our retained firefighters was actually was better because people had to work from home or stay at home, but actually that's not a model that is sustainable, I think it's fair to say, as we would like, because people are working further away from home. So you might have some change that's going on in terms of retained, and actually the community officers, it's actually an interesting trial on that. Admittedly, that focus of that is around prevention, but really looking from an optimum way as to where we make sure our resources are all in the right place. I hope that answers your question.
So I was thinking, just another question was...
Can I pop your mic on?
Another question was, the fire stations themselves, which I think you were thinking of closing some down and not... Oh, no, maybe not. Are you actually keeping, like, the individual fire stations, like the one over in Thrapston? Are you going to keep that one?
We as part of the estates review, we are looking from an operational point of view around utilisation. So I give an example. So if we take the quadrangle, the lovely triangle that I could draw if I took into, I'm going to forget the name of the station there, Kettering, Rothwell and Desborough. That is a very tight, compact, that I don't think we need 3. I know the Chief Fire Officer is looking to say, should we mothball either Thrapston or Desborough? Not mothball. No, sorry, not Rothwell and Desborough, not Thrapston. Nothing's happening to Thrapston, just in answer to that one. Gosh, I'm starting something by accident here. On the the first combined, we're not. It's a combined station. No, we want to do more of that, but actually we want to make sure that also we did some work about what's the availability of people to be retained. So we also did some analysis that says, you know, and I'm going to call it Littleville, and actually it turns out that actually we've got a fire station there, and there's only 100 people live there, and 25 below the thing. Well, actually that's not enough to, it might be the right location, but if you can't crew it, it doesn't make any sense. One that continues to be a challenge, for instance, is Woodford House. So looking at an innovative way about what we could do to make sure that they do stay on the road. I know so that's just some of the work that we're going there. But you're right, we'll probably, I think there's 6 at one and 4 at another in terms of the Desborough and Rothwell, not Thrapston. That, like I said, it's better to make sure that one pump is on the run all the time rather than, you know, 2 at 25% or something like that. So we will look, and there may be some consolidation opportunities that present themselves. But that's work that needs to be done, and I assure you Thrapston is an important one, and it's not on any list anywhere.
Well, the reason why I put Thrapston is because obviously it serves lots of villages. You know, it's not just sitting there on its own. And there's an increase in housing around that area. But also, which is going to come up, is massive warehouses in Thrapston which are going to be built. And, you know, taking that all into consideration, you know, you sometimes don't realise, I mean, it's, you know, suddenly these warehouses built today and you wouldn't realise they'd happened. So that was my concern about.
Can I just reassure you, there's some quite detailed work done in conjunction with the council to look at what fire demand looks like today, but also looks in the future. So naturally, there's a profile. We had some a report done on where our fire stations are relative to future demand to rear shelves, and broadly they're in the right place. I think one of the things that is actually quite interesting is what I would call a bit more dynamic demand. So it's not static. So for instance, you know, quite frankly, we all sleep in our homes for the most part at night. And as a consequence of that, then we all go out to work. Well, so actual risk moves in different locations. And so one of the things we would want to look at is to make sure that we can address some of those, work in conjunction with local employers and things like that.
So I've got 3 speakers, so Andre, Zoe, Jill, then Ken. So Andre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions, really. Firstly, how much of this has been discussed with the nominated Chief Fire Officer, as we're obviously holding a confirmation hearing on the 20th of February? And in terms of the strategic partnership with Warwickshire and Northamptonshire, how much of that at the end of the day is based on the budget that we have here, and are there challenges coming through? Obviously, we're all very keen to see the estate strategy coming through to us as soon as possible as well. Thank you.
We have an interim Chief Fire Officer and his team who are widely involved in it. And briefings have been given to the, if you like, the I'm going to call it an unconfirmed or nominated candidate for the Chief Fire Officer role. I'm not quite sure I understand what you meant by the Warwickshire bit, Andre. What do you mean?
The strategic partnership that we have with Warwickshire and Northamptonshire, how much of that in terms of relies or depends on the budget that we have here before us? And in terms of that, actually, out of interest, what sort of savings coming through could be seen coming through on the next year?
We are this takes account. There is some work that we're doing around the interdependency from an IT system for the control room with Warwickshire. As some of you may or may not know, Warwickshire had to decant from their control room recently and co-locate with us. We are looking, but it would be too early to comment, to say if there are any further opportunities for us to work in an even deeper way, if you like. But our trajectory has always been a combined, complete police and fire control room in Northamptonshire. That must become before all. But actually, I would say, through our conversations, it doesn't look like that's a barrier to better working between the two.
Councillor McGee.
Thank you. Just quite a short and straight up question. A short, straight up answer would be absolutely brilliant. The biggest challenges in the force from the firefighters that I speak to is the number of firefighters and the equipment. Can you tell me that if our taxpayers, our most vulnerable taxpayers, pay an extra 2.99%, straight up, honestly, it will improve? Will it improve from that?
Yes.
You've got me. I look forward to seeing the evidence of that. Thank you.
How quick was that? Thank you. Swift and fast, fantastic. Councillor Mercer.
Yeah, I go back to my earlier question, which got forgotten because we got talking about the section.
Sorry, you've gone off, I think. Sorry.
Sorry, I go back to my earlier question, which got forgotten in the other conversations about youth engagement officer. Is that in conjunction with the cadets, or what does that involve?
Literally, this was a investment post that we were doing a project within the fire service in terms of their youth engagement in conjunction with the early intervention and the youth team. They work in partnership, and you're right. The brand of fire and police are different, and we want to make sure that we leverage that. It was a project we'd funded for a short period of time. It proved successful. They asked us the fire service asked us to mainstream it as an ongoing one, and we've done so because it was successful.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. Page 88 of your report, I see that you've got business rates of 3.6 million. Obviously, just looking at the previous report as well, and I'm sorry to hark back, I didn't see anything about business rates at the police.
It's a tragedy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So did you know that the fire service gets money for business rates? The police gets not a single penny from business rates at all. So that's why it's not there, because they don't get any. I do think that's incorrect, because actually you'd think, wouldn't it, with business crime and all that kind of stuff, that there would be. But no, it doesn't. I can tell you there was a very interesting conversation between, it was ironic, between myself, the Chief Constable, and Nikki at the time with Silverstone. And there was a conversation about, well, we pay all of this rates for the police. And you're right, no you don't. Actually, because I did say, how many people live there? And oh, not very many. Well, then you don't pay anything for it, really. So no, there is not any business rates that comes from the police service. Totally unjust, don't you think?
I absolutely, because I actually sit on the planning committees, and one of the things on the planning committees, it does state that from the security elements, and it contacts the police from a security element, is would you actually approve this, you know, from a secure perspective? Unbelievable. Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer.
Thank you. And I think that's possibly another lobbying thing that we need to put into.
You'll be pleased to know it is on that list.
Yeah, I will bring it up with the National Association of Police, Fire and Crime panels. But I just wanted to say that I would like to propose that we accept this recommendation and look for a seconder.
Can I just? I just want to add something. It was particularly to Zoe's point about kind of improvements. You said short. No. Well, no. Thanks. Look, don't underestimate the financial challenges that fire and rescue services are facing across the country. If anyone look at one of my colleagues in North Yorkshire, they're talking about where they've got to buy, and they call them. I love the terminology. They call them pre-loved fire engines. So second-hand ones, because they're not being used as much. So actually, that gives you some idea. Whereas we've got 8, we've got a new thing, we've got 4 more coming. So I know I've got them on order, so I can guarantee it's going to improve. But you're right, they have to be paid for. But actually, it just gives you some insight into some of the challenges. I did love the term though, pre-loved fire engines.
I find it interesting. The Commissioner can get kerplunk and pre-loved, you know.
Can I just
Baker,
second
yes.
Councillor Mercer's proposal that we...
Of course. Okay, so draw attention to the recommendations 3.1. So all those in agreement? It's unanimous. Brilliant. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 8, the Police, Fire and Crime Panel Work Programme for 23-24. And I'll hand over to James.
Thank you, Chair. So this is in the main part, the standard report that goes to each panel meeting, setting out the panel's current work programme, which can include scrutiny work, but also supporting activities such as briefings, all the things the panel has identified previously that it wants to do, clearly presented with a view to take stock, to add, amend, and also take out anything that's in the work programme, with a view to ensuring that it reflects the panel's statutory functions and enables the panel to direct its collective efforts to best effect. So that is the general element of this report. There is also a specific element which is Appendix B, which is updated terms of reference for the task and finish scrutiny work that the panel began in 2023 but wasn't able to conclude on the topic of early intervention activity with children and young people at risk of becoming involved in criminal activity. So the panel resolved at its last meeting that it wanted to continue this work. So the appendix presents an update of the original terms of reference to hopefully achieve that outcome. I mean, to highlight particularly, if I can actually find the right piece of paper, so on page 142, where you've got the timetable and key dates, that is predicated on the principle that the work should be completed in time to report to the Commissioner at the first meeting of the 24-25 civic year. In other words, that the evidence gathering phase of the work is completed by the end of this civic year. That would very much involve fitting the breadth of the work to the time available, rather than rather than the other way around. It is a challenging timescale, and it is a finite timescale, rather than the timescale being driven by the breadth of the work. The terms of reference would also need to be updated from what's on the page in front of you to reflect Mrs. Shields' resignation and the fact she's therefore no longer in a position to be involved in this work. So that is intended to take forward the resolution from the last panel meeting, as I say, to continue with this work to conclusion. Happy to take any questions on that, Chair, or the work programme in general as set out in the report.
Thank you, Chair. Something that we've actually anticipated, or in fact had in the past, and I appreciate that certain events have probably overtaken us, but I think it's very important to have a briefing by the interim Chief Constable and also the interim Chief Fire Officer for any questions that this panel has. And I think it's very important, because obviously when you consider lots of the questions that we've had actually are in policing and the activities of the police force, and they're presumably some of the questions that the interim Chief Constable and also the interim Chief Fire Officer could probably answer.
Can I come in on that one? It's the same point, I guess, that I made before, that it's the Commissioner's job to hold the operational chiefs to account, but that doesn't mean that we don't deny you an audience with them. I think the better model which we want to continue is providing that more informal environment for for a briefing from the operational leaders to sort of ask questions and find out about the work that they're doing. But really important to be clear on the respective holding to account and scrutiny roles for me.
It wasn't holding to these officers to account. It was actually just getting information.
Yeah, I think getting information makes a lot of sense.
Because we don't hold anybody to account.
We'd very happily support that.
Yeah, I think there's absolute enthusiasm. A lot has happened since June of last year, and I think it's the soft touches which we're lacking at the moment. I think an encouragement from that perspective would be tremendously beneficial to everybody, and put things to rest, as it were, and we move forward, because we had great intentions when I came into the chair in June of last year. And as I say, a lot's happened, and we just wanted to get some pace in what we were doing, and getting more public involvement. We certainly had some of that, haven't we? We've got a work plan. We've tried to drive forward, and that was again challenged. I think I'd be interested in Zoe's thoughts on that as to sort of that delivery, and we're now being set. There's a hard date. And it's whether we believe we can achieve that we're looking to achieve.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you can only do what you can do, can't you, in the time frame that you've got. That's what we've got. I think the work is worth doing. I think it's something we were all really passionate about. So even just for that sake, I think it's worth doing in the time frame that we've got. It would be a shame to not have Anita there, because she's so thorough about her work. She's so well read, and she's very passionate about it. But I think, you can only do what you can do in the time that we've got. So yeah.
We see what they look like.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the dates are here. Yeah, no, but we haven't actually seen
Chiefs.
Chiefs. Oh, I thought we were talking about the early intervention plan. Sorry, no. Oh, sorry, I must have gone.
No, we're talking about both. Sorry, there's apologies. I'm complicating the world even further.
You were queued up on the early intervention pack.
Yeah.
Councillor Maxwell was referring back to previous.
Sorry.
And just to revert to the point about briefings from the operational leaders, it's in the plan here, isn't it, for briefing sessions with the Chief Fire Officer and Chief Police Constable, and we'd happily do that. I know that we're in conversation with the team about bringing a specific briefing forward to the next opportunity to talk about Serving with Pride, which is a big report that we've conducted into culture and fire and rescue service, and I think that's exactly the kind of thing that it'd be good to bring to the table here. I'm going to stop talking before I cough.
Can I just say something? I think equally, since last year and everything that's gone on last year, we sort of missed track about exactly who these people are who are actually running the police and the fire. We don't even know what they look like. So, it would be quite nice if we could have just to touch base on what their vision is for the future.
Okay, I might leave you, James, to deliver that as you've just delivered. So apologies, but we've got Councillor Mercer, then we'll come back to James to sort of top off where we're at on this agenda item. Apologies, James, putting you on the spot, but you're the master of these things. So, Councillor Mercer.
Just item B on there and item F are more or less, I think could be combined. They're both about the Ipsos Mori survey work, so I'd suggest they're combined. I look forward to those briefings, but I would say if members could try and attend, because we've only had very few of the members at the last few briefings we've had. I know they're daytime, and I know Councillor McGee is not necessarily always available, but there are others as well that haven't been there. So if they're really useful, especially that say the budget one. There were very few of us there, so they're very helpful to explain the budget.
Chairman, may I make a recommendation that the briefings are held a bit more formally in terms of the opportunity we have. We clearly have dates in diary already for our meetings, and that might be a better way of concentrating the efforts as opposed to being outside this particular meeting. And I'm sure we'd all welcome to see and meet the chiefs acting, interim or substantive.
To be brief, you're absolutely right, yes. So, James, did you just want to conclude that?
Certainly. So, I'm not hearing anything that says otherwise than the panel is happy to agree the updated terms of reference for the task and finish work. So, we'll take that as a resolution. And then it's just a case of the panel endorsing the work programme subject to any amendments or additions. And I don't know if there is a sense from the meeting that the panel would like to say that it's keen that a briefing with the operational chiefs is organised as soon as it possibly can be. And any steer that the panel wants to give about scheduling that, we can take on board. Councillor Gonzalez de Savage made the point about linking that to a scheduled panel meeting date, conscious of where that it may be easier for some members than others to add an hour onto the start of a panel meeting. I can propose that, and some members will say yay and others nay. So as much clarity you can give about whether that is a route you want to go would be useful. And bearing in mind, of course, that scheduled panel meetings currently means the 20th of February and the 14th of March, and that's it for this civic year, unless something else arises.
Just got the recruitment meeting.
So we've just got Kath has got a question here.
Sorry, I was conscious also that Mr. Bagg raised the issue of serving with pride, and I wondered whether it would be an opportunity to do that together with the other on the 20th.
On the estate strategy.
20th
We'd be happy to do that. I know that the Mori work on culture in the service is on this list. To some extent, that's been built on by Serving with Pride, and I think it speaks to your existing agenda. If we come and present that, we'd happily do that before the meeting or as part of the agenda. It depends how long you want for your respective tasks.
So we're talking about the 20th of February when the panel is due to hold the confirmation hearing for the proposed appointment of a Chief Fire Officer. So the suggestion is that a briefing session is done around that, and would that be to cover Serving with Pride and the two operational chiefs, or just Serving with Pride? The Commissioner is indicating Serving with Pride.
I think you've got a confirmation hearing to do and Serving with Pride. They're quite meaty subjects. I will stick by the bit that we will provide you won't get everything you need on the 14th. We'll have to find another date. Obviously, we've got a confirmation hearing for Chief Fire Officer. As you'll know, there is some developments on the Chief Constable that would resolve them in a positive or negative way this month. So we'll work with you to schedule those briefings. Maybe we can do them before maybe the one on the 14th, but I am very keen you would just be before PERDA, so one would need a little bit careful what they do or don't say in public. But we'll as far as I'm concerned, we'll maintain what we've agreed. You will have a confirmation hearing on the 20th. Briefing, I think we need to include Mori in the Serving with Pride that's incorporated with it. And then we'll take some offline and some informal stuff between now and the May. And then you can look at, we already made a commitment that the chiefs would at least appear before you annually. And like I said, that's just been a challenge in the last 12 months, but we'll make sure we get back to that. But that might not be my decision.
Thank you for that. Okay, yeah. It's been a tough and interesting time since June, hasn't it? So you've got that, James, yeah. So I think that concludes that agenda item. Are you happy that are we all happy that we've, yes?
And I would just to counsellor, so that we will intend to do a briefing for you, probably in that window in the next 4 weeks around the estates as we make stuff public, but we'll come back to you with a date very soon.
Okay, so through you, Chair, what is proposed is the 20th of February is a reserve date in the calendar already, which the panel would have used if it had vetoed either of the Commissioner's proposed precepts earlier at the meeting today, and therefore needed to look at revised proposals. That didn't happen, so the proposal is that the 20th of February is used for a confirmation hearing for the proposed appointment of a Chief Fire Officer. Secondly, that the Commissioner and his office will also provide a briefing session for panel members on the same date, covering serving with pride and the outcomes of the Mori survey work. And then a further date, or dates potentially, will be identified for outside of this meeting for a briefing with the operational chiefs. And the panel has also agreed it's happy with the updated terms of reference for the EI work. And the Commissioner offered, and if the panel is happy to accept, that a briefing, a date in the near future for a briefing on the estate strategy will also be organised.
Sorry, I'm a bit kind of confused because we need to be careful because some of the panel members might change, mightn't they, after a while?
From May.
So we have to be mindful of that as well.
May.
Not till May.
Oh, okay.
From May.
Okay.
And presumably we'll need the fire officer at that confirmation hearing. So we will know what they look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I sincerely hope so after last time. Sorry, I had to say it. Sorry, Kath just wanted to come in around thoughts on Purda.
Yeah, so as far as I can see, it's the 22nd of March. So if you want to get in, get your briefing in, I would suggest you do it before then. So that's the sort of time frame you've got to set a date. But obviously, as James says, we'll take that outside the meeting and get that set up.
Not done a very good job of chairing that bit, have I? Apologies. So I think we've concluded on agenda item 8, yes?
Yes.
Excellent. So back in the room. So agenda item 9, so the arrangements to recruit an independent co-opted member of the panel. So again, over to James.
Thank you, Chair. So the report sets out proposed arrangements for the recruitment of new independent co-opted members, plural, by the panel to reflect that the sitting members, although now only down to one, Miss Woodhouse, were appointed in 2020 to serve for a period of office that elapses in 2024. So the fact that Mrs Shields' resignation just before this meeting has no bearing on this item. It was being brought forward anyway to reflect the need for a scheduled recruitment of new independent co-opted members. The panel is required to have a minimum of 2 independent members. It previously took a decision that it would be useful to increase that by 1, which has to be approved by the Home Office and was approved. So we will be looking to recruit 3 independent members to serve from 2024 to 2028. The report sets out in broad terms the arrangements that will be followed to do that, which build on arrangements that have been used successfully in the past, suitably updated to as necessary. So to take account of the latest government guidance, for example, on the role of independent co-opted members. Section 5 of the report talks about some of the practicalities, the methods that will be used to advertise these roles and hopefully attract a good field of interested applicants. Again, the process used successfully in the past is for applicants to submit an application form. Applicants are then shortlisted and interviewed by a subgroup of panel members, and so on that basis the panel, as well as being asked to endorse the proposed approach set out in the report, is also asked to identify 3 is the suggested number councillor members of the panel to make up a subgroup to participate in the recruitment, so shortlisting and interviewing later in 2024, to enable 3 proposed appointees to be presented to the first panel meeting in 24-25 for the panel as a whole to agree those appointments. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Councillor Mercer.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest at 5.6, where you list all of the places for advertising. Now we have the LAPS and the local area partnerships and the community wellbeing forums. That is a place where quite a few voluntary organisations and other interested members of the public come along. So that would be a good forum to advertise in.
Noted, thank you, Councillor Mercer. Anyone else?
What's the minimum age requirement? Sorry? 18, isn't it? Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Through you, Chair, I think it would be quite useful if we advertise it through the youth networks that we have in the county as well, to try and encourage better youth engagement.
Agree.
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously have the youth forum in the West. Did you have an equivalent?
No, we don't.
Okay, we'll leave it to you to, yeah. And Stephen?
I like Andre's. I like Andre's idea, but the other one as well. I mentioned earlier at PCSOs we had struggled. We spent a very small amount of money on social media and had a 3-fold increase in terms of applicants, and I mean a really insignificant. It was like £100 on social media advertising. You might want to consider that. Taking Andre's point about you'll get a different and a younger audience, perhaps.
Yeah.
Not saying this.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Well, we've increased it to 3, so one of those people.
Yes.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, I think just echoing the comments being made around the table here in terms of having the 3rd independent member being a representative of the younger population of the county. So if we said under 25?
Can we do that? I mean,
you can, in large part. It's down to the panel. I mean, the panel has taken the view with the independent co-opted members in the past that, so some panels say they want an independent co-opted member who has a policing background, for example. The Northamptonshire panel in the past has been not gone down that route of almost hypothecating independent member roles to people from particular backgrounds. They focused more on what the individuals who come forward can bring. Broader skills around scrutiny, for example, about understanding finance, or so if the panel prescribes, then it's possibly limiting the field rather than whereas if it leaves it open, the people can still come forward, but and could be selected as the best fit. Ultimately, the selection subgroup who makes the recommendations and the panel which agrees the final appointments are saying these are the 3 people who we think would most complement the skills that the other panel members bring. So you can prescribe or you can leave it open, and that doesn't prevent you from saying, yes, we would like these people.
I think there's we would want to encourage, I think, wouldn't we? I think it's so important that across many aspects of my work as a cabinet member in the West, along with Fiona, often we look at our youth. They're the future. We want to hear their voices. we've got incredible challenges moving forward in all sorts of areas. We had in the West only yesterday we had a vaping summit, and we need to understand how to communicate and work with our young citizens, because they're going to help us shape how things will actually, how they'll work moving forward. So I think even if we don't prescribe it as such, I think there needs to be absolute encouragement that we're looking for representatives across all ages, but the real focus on don't be afraid to step forward. All we want is their experience of youth. That's what we want to bring forward to the panel, I think, isn't it?
I totally agree with it, but I don't think we actually can be in a situation where we determine that one of these three members must be a younger member. You've got to look at the skills of the individual concerned. If in fact they're younger, even better. But we cannot say to the situation where one of the members must be a younger member. I think it's very, very important that we look at the skills and the contribution that they can make to the panel. If in fact they're younger, even better. But I think that's up for the interviewing panel to actually determine.
Talking about young people in general, they're never going to have a certain level of skills, and they have to start somewhere.
Well, I think
we need to bring them into the room.
I think the fact we're going from 2 to 3. Well, I hope we are, and so I think we always have to strike a balance, but the youth of today, they're affected in so many ways, and I think if they've got a voice on the panel, I think it's really important, because they're going to ask questions we never even thought of, and I can pretty much guarantee we'll sit here in a year's time and think that's a good question. That's a good question. So I think the encouragement is important, and you look at the early intervention work we're doing, it sends out a really strong message as well. Whatever we do today will have an effect in however many years' time, and I think it's a really important thing to do is to encourage the youth. We were all young once, and our view of the world has changed somewhat. I was going to none of us are 3 anymore. There you go. So I've got a few hands up, but before we go into any more questions, ideally we would like to identify the 3 councillor members for this panel this afternoon, because I think again that will give us that additional drive.
I'll volunteer if that's helpful.
Well, there you go. We've got one already. So Andre is Councillor Maxwell. Goodness gracious. And there you go, a younger voice.
Mr. Chairman, over half the population is a young person in this county, so therefore we have a duty and responsibility to ensure their voices are heard around this table. I think of influence.
Yep. Okay, there you go. We could.
I don't think you want to. If there's a tidal wave of interest, I think this group would become too unwieldy if it was more than 5. But if it was 3, 4, or 5 rather than 3, I don't think that would be an issue. I mean, if someone's coming into an interview situation, you need to be mindful of having a massed rank of interviewers in front of them. But yeah, 3, 4, or 5 is feasible.
So we've got Councillor Baker as well, has a keen interest as well.
Also got Councillor Carr.
And Councillor.
I was asked something else. Actually.
Okay, so Councillor Carr.
I'm quite happy to put my name down. Yes. Anyway.
So Councillor Carr, anyway. Well, Councillor Carr first, please, Ken.
Yeah. It was just, in fact, very quickly, is with regards to can the independent person actually sit on the panel? So I was actually looing at Pauline because she's got a lot of it.
Ask if I could observe if you've got 5 people.
Well, there you go. We've got that. But is there?
Shall we say only 3 of the
5
available?
Anyway.
But would you not be? Okay, so if James could just speak, but we were thinking you might carry on, but James.
Yes, without wishing to put Miss Woodhouse in a corner. You're coming to the end of your 4-year term. You could do a second 4-year term. It would be completely inappropriate to be on the panel if you're also interested in the position. So I don't want you to answer that question, but your ability to participate in the panel kind of depends on it.
Okay, Councillor Carr.
So you couldn't participate in the subgroup if you're also being interviewed by the subgroup.
No, I know.
Unless you're only good at answering your own questions.
But if I'm not going to be...
Yes, there would be more scope.
So only 3 of the 5, should we say? Out of interest, that helps in terms of the final.
Leave it to James to sort out.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, I think we've.
Not 5. We don't want 5 people in that panel.
No, 3 is enough.
Only 3.
We've got.
So I've got Councillors Gonzalez de Savage, Maxwell, McGee, and Baker.
I think as the dates come through, people might drop anyway.
So we could, Councillor Carr, I mean, apologies, would you like to be the reserve or whatever? Because I'm just thinking, James, I detect a degree of discomfort from James, but are you happy with the 5 then? You think that works and it's not, okay, good. Well, there you go, we've got a decision then.
5, otherwise we end up with a swamping of an individual candidate, don't we?
I don't see you as...
See what the date is.
Let's, yeah.
Half of us might vote come in.
We've got a huge expression of interest, which is a rarity in itself, so thank you. So, is that us topped and tailed on that one, James? Sorry, Councillor Carr, did you actually have a... Yeah.
No, the point I was going to make when we were talking about young people, it's the start of their lives. I mean, I started volunteering when I was 10 years old, and to come into a meeting like this at 19 years of age might absolutely terrify some young person, but it's experience. That's the other thing. They might learn all sorts of things from it. But of course, here in Northampton, we've got the university, which serves all sorts of people, all different ages, right across the county. And I think somewhere within that message, looking for people, should be sharing something with the university as well. They've got various channels that they use, and the fact that we meet here, if that person is a student and they are residing in Northampton, in halls of residence or something, they can easily get here for those meetings. So it's just a thought, and that could be any age group. I hasten to add when I say about students, because students, they're not all 18 years of age. I was at university with somebody who was in their 90s. So and all different ages bring different things to the table, as we all know.
Yeah, I think the push on this is going to be for we want to encourage, be absolutely inclusive in this sweep when we go out for candidates who would like to come forward on it. And I think again in the communications that we put out there, we just need to be really, really clear. There'll be a slightly different expectation from there's a different expectation from anybody who sits on a panel, I think. But I think the encouragement of a young person is important. Councillor Mercer, then Councillor Baker. Sorry, Fiona.
Sorry, Fiona. We need to spread the word, and to the university, it's fantastic and that. But I have been on a board where we've tried to get a young person on the board, and we just haven't managed to get one. And it's probably, as Councillor Carr said, it's rather daunting. But it would be nice, but I don't think we should be too prescriptive, because we can have people from all walks of life. And then, we have a different skills base. So if we just keep it open and, say, anyone can apply, given the constraints that you've got anyway. We really need to be open to all sorts of people, not just people with police experience, etc.
Councillor Baker.
The whole mantra of both of our councils is that we need to hear the voice of the younger generation. And I'm going to say that Councillor Smith was at that same meeting I was at yesterday, where we had a very accomplished 21-year-old who spoke very powerfully to a room of, 80 people without a qualm. And she actually knew her business. She told us exactly what we wanted to hear from her. And she was a really valuable input to that summit. So I think we just put it out there. The age is from 18. and we see what happens.
Of course they are. I was 22, 23 when I was elected, and it's character building. That's what it is. It teaches you something. It should be welcome.
Well, at this summit yesterday, we had a 12-year-old who spoke. So
Yeah, we did. We had
so-
to.
Okay, I think
Eligible, so I didn't mention her.
I think there's a passion and an interest and a drive for an encouragement. You can't have an over-encouragement, can you? So I think that concludes agenda item 9. So agenda item 10, police fine crime panel meeting dates for 24-25. Over to James.
Thank you, Chair. These are the proposed meeting dates for next year. They follow the established pattern. They take account of the statutory timescales that the panel has to do, apply to certain things the panel has to do, and hopefully fit in between meetings of West Northants and North Northants Council. The report outlines considerations that have gone into identifying them. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay, so I think that concludes business. And no urgent business has been raised in advance, and I've got none. Anybody else? If not, I will close this meeting and thank you for coming.